let's see together an example on how to do that one. Just a second, I will open my code editors here. Okay, so homework. I'm going to show the homework instructions just to refresh your memory and to show what we are talking about. So it was this one, the homework shopping list buttons, that you were supposed to use this project as a starting point and then practice some state modifications based on button click events. And the idea was that you would have 4 buttons here on the bottom, and then it would add, let's say, strawberries, yogurt, beer, carrots, and things like this. And then there was the second difficulty level, so that every time when you click, let's say, on the carrots button, it doesn't add a new carrots line, but it increases the amount of carrots. Okay, there is someone having an open mic and then making some strange noises. I'm gonna mute now, you guys. Okay, so let's see an example on how you can do it. You can add the buttons. So we already had this one button there. Let's say the click me. And it was already adding the carrots. So that one is already working. So the task was to actually add 3 more buttons, not 4. So we can start by rewriting the text here on this button, so that it makes a little bit more sense. So it was here, this click me. Yeah, so this is the exercise plus, I mean, the same template plus the modifications what we did last time. So this is not the totally fresh template. It has this button here as a newer thing. Just if you are wondering that this is looking different than what you might have if you clone from the Git repository. So here we might have carrots, okay. Then if you want to add, let's say, the yogurt, bread, and then, for example, beer. Okay, so now we have carrots, yogurt, bread, beer. Now every time when we click here, we add some more carrots, and that's because here we have this same function which we are calling every time when a button is being clicked. So we can add some more. We can add some more functions to deal with that. So we could add some yogurt. And we can copy this one from here. And let's say 2 yogurt. And some bread, white bread, and only one bread. Add some beer, and 8. Make it 6. Then we need to modify it here. Add some, what was it, yogurt. Bread. Okay, so now we have carrots, yogurt, bread, beer. Okay. Can you find a way of doing this with less code? Now, there seems to be quite a lot of copy-paste style code, with only thing changing is this one and this one. Any ideas on how to make this with a little bit less code so that we don't have to do so much copy pasting here? Writing code like this very rarely is a very good idea. It leaves you open for quite a lot of copy paste mistakes, and then also if you would need to modify, for example, your state structure, then you would have a lot of places to modify, because all these are identical except for this value here in the string. So any ideas how to make this a little bit better, the implementation? So every time when you see a situation like this, that you are basically copying code and then modifying only a few things inside, you should always notice that, okay, this is a moment where I could make a function here, and these obviously should now be parameters instead of having own functions to do that. So instead of having functions add some carrots, yogurt, bread, beer, we would put here that, for example, add some stuff, and then give some parameters for it. So you could give so that, okay, it has, here we have the stuff description and then quantity. So instead of having these named functions and the only difference being these, we could have one general function doing the same thing and taking the whatever is changing as parameters. So we would have here, copy this one, and instead of giving here a direct string value, we would take this parameter here and put it here. Stuff description and then quantity, not that one. And then here is now an ID value. It was here incorrectly 5 for all of these. So here the idea would be so that all these objects in our items array, all these elements, they would have a unique ID. So one way of doing that one could be, for example, so that we could for example, read the length from here and then put +1. So depending on how you use this set state, this could work. In some scenarios, for example, if you have multiple set states executed right after another, before the set state calls are actually executed, because how React works is that it collects all these set states and then it executes all of them basically in a single processing cycle when appropriate. So when you have code like this, in a situation that you would have multiple set states called basically at the same time, then the value of this state would not be updated, and then this would generate identical IDs. So that's why this would be a bad solution at that time. So, but now we have only single set state called. So this one should work without problems. Okay, so now we have this function here, add some stuff, which takes the description and quantity of the stuff here. And okay, so now we need to call this one. So previously we had here add some carrots, add some yogurt, add some bread, add some beer. So now if we modify this one to be add some stuff like this, and then we give a parameter here that, okay, it should be carrots, and then, for example, 5, and then this one would be yogurt, and 2 yogurts. Here we would have bread, 4 bread. Then we would have beer, a 6-pack. Okay, but now there is some mistake. What is that one? Let's see, line 45, expected. This kind of stuff. What is the situation here? Here, add some stuff. There is a missing arrow syntax. Okay, maximum update depth exceeded. What is the problem here? I mentioned this last week, but can somebody describe that? What is the situation? What is happening here? Why am I getting this one? And Kimo on the chat is saying you need an arrow function, but why is that? Why do I need it? Does anyone know?
Because you enter as an infinite loop when render is being called, it calls back again the function, and then it calls render, and then calls the function. And because when the state updates, it's always called render, and when render is called, it calls again the set state, and set state calls render, and then you go in infinite loop. This is why you're getting this error. So basically, you need to set it in a function so it would be called on click without being automatically called when the code is being interpreted.
Yes. So this is now executed when this render is being executed. So we execute this function, and then it goes here, and then it executes this one, and a state modification with set state in React always triggers a new render cycle. So it's gonna render again, and then we are in an infinite loop. So indeed, we would need to put here these arrow function syntaxes, so that now we are giving a function. But here, this is the function to execute when there is an on click. So now it should work like this. Also, another option, what we could do would be so that instead of having this totally works. Let's see. Yeah, now it works as intended. Another option, what we could do is that instead of having it here, it would, in the same way, would be possible of having here, like so. Add some stuff could just as well return a function for us. And it should work like it does. So now this add some stuff function does not execute the set state as part when it is executed, but what it does is that it returns a function. And when this function is executed, only then the set state is executed. Which approach do you prefer? This one or this one? Any ideas? There is no correct or wrong answer here. Both will work. I'm going to leave this now like this, for example. Okay, but now we have this problem here. This is not very nice application behavior. It would be much better if we would simply increment this bread here. Now I would have 8 breads, 12, 60, and so on, instead of having it like this many times. What would be the key here on doing this modification? Now our set state here, I'm going to break these lines. It's going to get too long already. Easier to see. Oops. What would... Okay, so here we are setting always a new array. We are taking the existing items and then always adding a new element here to this array. So for that reason, we are indeed adding new elements here. What would need to be done if we would like to add the quantity into the beer if it exists, instead of having it work like this? What would need to change here? Obviously, we cannot be doing this, that we simply take the existing items and then keep adding this one blindly into the array. But now something better needs to be done, and basically that is that we need to inspect the contents of this items array and then find that do we have this element already there, and if so, then we add the quantity into the existing quantity. If we don't find the stuff description already in the items, then we need to add it there as a new element. So we need to modify the code a little bit. And let's write it here again. Okay. So what would be the first step here when starting to do that? How can we find that is this stuff description already inside these items. Okay, Lasse is suggesting something like includes. Let's see. So includes is one of the methods in the JavaScript array. So we can see that, okay, do we have already some value inside its entries, and then we can return true or false. Now, as you can see, here is the value to find. So here the examples are for primitive values. So for 2, and then for a string cat. But now when our array is basically an array of objects, so could we put here an object and then expect it to work? What do you think? Kimo is suggesting no. So why would it not work? We can try it. So if we have here that, okay, if these state items includes, and then what we would include, we would need to put here now the value what we want to check for. Now since the values are objects of this type, so we would need to put here, let's see if we try to get this working, an object. And then the ID would need to be set, and then it would need to be known. We would need to know what is the ID. If this would work, let's say it assumes that we are maybe, okay, we can try with milk, for example. We know that milk ID is 1. We can try this. Oh. And then we would need to know that, okay, the value. Let's try first with hard-coded milk, and then quantity is 5, and then, okay, we have here in a unit LTR as well. Like so. So now we can try to see that does this items array include this kind of object. And then we can check here. Say, okay, if it's true, if it includes, we can put here log yes milk found. And then no milk. Try this one and then see what happens. So when we add some stuff, meaning when we click on the button, we should execute this one to see that, okay, if the state items includes this kind of object, and if you think about this object, it should be there because its ID, value, quantity, and unit is the same. So it should be printing this, maybe. Okay, there is now some problem. Did I miss some of the brackets? I think yes. This one is for the if statement. Here is for the else. Okay, so it was missing this one, the matching bracket for this function body start. Okay, so now when I click any of these, it will execute this function. And it should see that do we have an element like this. And we need to have the console open to see what is the return. No milk. Yeah, this suggests us that we would know these values, but even if we know these values, we cannot find the milk. As you can see, it says no milk. What is going on here? Why is it not working? It should work. We have the items. The items has this kind of object. It has ID 1, value is milk, quantity 5, unit LTR. Everything is the same. So it is very, very strange. But it is not strange if you think about that. What is the logic of dealing with objects in JavaScript? It is the pass by reference. And when comparing objects, you are comparing that is the reference the same. Now, what we are doing here, we are creating a new object. So the reference is not the same. And therefore, having this includes will only work with primitives, or if you are dealing with comparing object references. So then this would probably work. Okay, so that was a good suggestion, but it doesn't work here because we would need to have the same object reference, and even if there would not be the pass by reference, if this includes would check actual contents of the objects and then see that does it match. Even then we would need to know the ID and quantity and leader. So we need to have something which allows only to check this value. Any ideas? There is lots of good stuff here in the array. Some methods. So now we tried this includes and saw that, okay, it doesn't really work here. Then there is this find index, for example, or find. Find index will return you an index of the element. So, and the good thing of this one that now you are using functional programming because you can pass a custom testing function. And that is exactly what we need here. We can write our own code to see that do we have a match or not. And then as a return, if we get a match, we will get the index number in the array. And if there is no match, then we will return 1. Alrighty then, so let's get this one working. We delete this one. I'm going to keep this milk here, for example. So, okay, I'm going to comment everything out. Okay, so now it will return the index, so we can have a simple if statement. If that operation here succeeds, then items find index, and then something we will write. If it is something else than -1, because it says -1 will be returned that we didn't find anything. So if we get something else than -1, then we can know that, yes, we have it here. And then if we have -1, then we have again the no milk situation. Okay. Now only thing remains here is that we need to provide the testing function, because as it says here, we can provide a testing function, and here is an example of that one. Is large number is a function which has been defined here, so we can check it out. So how this works is that the testing function will take 3 arguments. We will get the current element being processed, we will get the index, and then we will get the full array. And then we could even have to set what is the value of this, but we don't need that one. So we're going to write a function here. We have the element, index, and array. And then we have the function body. Now the element will have the element in processing, and the element will contain references to these objects, what we have in the state. So now we could basically check out that, okay, if element dot value equals stuff description. Then we have found our match. But what do we need to return from here? It says here, function to execute on each value in the array until the function returns true. Okay, so we need to return true when we find the match and false when we have not found, and this element does not match our test. But now if we have this situation that the element value matches our stuff description, so then we will return true. Then else we return false. Okay, so this is now our testing function. It's a success, and then what is the let's actually make it so that we can store the index. So like this, I will take this whole function here away. Now the result of this operation will be stored here. So if match index, or let's give it a better name, maybe search result. If the search result is something else than this, okay, then we have a success. If index is matching for stuff description. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So there is some error here. Unexpected token. Okay, there is one extra bracket. Okay, so now when we click on the carrots, it will execute the carrots. The stuff description will be carrots. Then it will try to find an element from the items which value matches the stuff description. Let's see, we have carrots. It says no milk, so it did not find anything. Let's see with the bread. The bread is already existing there. Yes, now it says element with index 2 is matching for bread. So now we know that our code is working. This part is working. Now we know that we can find find if we have that stuff already in the shopping list. Next step would be then to act on that result. So instead of printing to the console, we can then modify our array accordingly. And this situation where we did not find anything, that one should work the same way as before. So a new element should be added totally to the array, to the items array. But this success situation is where we now need to add the quantity into an existing element in the array. So let's deal with this case, which we already have working. So we have here this set state. We can take that one and put it here. Okay. That one should work now. This is the one which we need to now write again. Okay, so what would be the steps here? What to do? How can we add this amount of quantity to the stuff what we just found? First, we need a new clone of the whole items array. So we need basically this operation. With this destructuring method, the spread method, we will create a new copy of the array, of the items array, here into the new items. And now we do this because the state in React must be immutable. So you cannot go on and modify the state. And for that reason, we need to create a clone of these items so that we can modify this one, because we will need to modify the quantity of the one which we found. Okay, now we can go new items. Here in the search result, we have now the index in the array where we have the matching element for this stuff description. So we can put search result. And now this one will be an object because these are objects. So we can use the dot notation, dot, and quantity. Simply add this parameter there. Now we have our modifications in this new array. Now we need to set that one into the state. So now we call this set state. Items will be new items. Again, some errors. Unexpected token. Why doesn't this work? How do we need to modify it to fix? What we want here a new array which contains everything what is here inside the items. So because we want a new array, we need to have the square brackets. Like so. Yes. Okay. Let's see. I click on the carrots. We do not have carrots here. It is added. I click on the bread. So now we have the bread here. Yes, it's working. Carrots, yogurt, beer. Yes. Okay. Any thoughts on this exercise? Or any questions? Please don't hesitate to ask if you did not understand something what is happening here. I cannot see your faces, so I cannot see that who is looking like this went totally on top of his head or her, and who looks like they got it. But understanding that how you can benefit from these methods where you can provide your own functions to execute. So this find index is indeed now a higher order function, and operating like this is called functional programming, where you are writing functions to do operations. So having this skill is very important, because so many of, for example, these operations in arrays, they work exactly like this. So it's very useful to practice that skill. Okay, so then let's make a modification to this exercise again, so that you would add a button here on every row, an X button, or it can have like a trash can icon. And when you click on that one, it will remove the entire row from the array, from this list. So every row should have a button which can be clicked to remove that row from the list. And let's do so that we have a 15-minute time on working on that, so until 11, plus a 15-minute time for a break, or you can keep on working on that, and then we'll continue at 11:15 on this. So I repeat, the task is to create a delete button for every item on this shopping list. And when you click on that delete button, it deletes the row from this list. That is the task. And combined with the break, you have 30 minutes of time to do that. So 15-minute exercise time plus 15-minute break. We continue at 11:15. Okay, some delete buttons then. Any ideas what to do for the delete buttons? First thing, obviously we need to have something to click on. So we can, for example, add that as a first thing, only the UI thing without any functionality. And there are many ways how to do that. But now, since I have those here in the shopping list component will be rendering these rows, so I need to inspect that one. So it is here, and then I have the shopping list item, which is rendered here in the shopping list. So shopping list item is here. So we are going to be rendering those. And by the way, here you can see the class names library in use. And here it is used to put multiple classes into a same element. So And this is now when we are using these CSS modules. So I'm importing the styles from this CSS module. So I have now the CSS styles as a style object. And then there are classes with name flex and item. So by calling the CX function, which was imported from class names library, I can then combine these two classes into for this element. And the class names library is available in the NPM repository. So when you need to use some library which is in the NPM repository, you always install it with this command, npm install, then the library or actually the module name. And then you can put the -- save if you want it to be saved to be a dependency in your project. And the dependency in your project means that it will be added here to the package.json file, like it is here in my project. And then when you have a module listed in your dependencies, it will be automatically installed whenever you execute npm install command from the same folder where this package.json is. So the npm is a very good tool for managing your dependencies in your project. Yeah, so here you can see an example on how to use class names library for using multiple CSS classes when using CSS modules. Okay, but the delete button. We would like to have some kind of button here. So let's see how this has been constructed. We have a list item, and then inside there is a div. Then we have the quantity. Then we have the unit. They are now here, this 5 liter, for example. And then we have the value, which is here. So if we do simply like this, that we add a new div and then, for example, a button, let's just say X here. Okay, I'm not now going to spend time on styling this one, for example, here to the edge. We are going functionality first. So this one will be okay for now. Okay, so now we have here some buttons. The idea would be so that when I click here, bread would be deleted. When I click here, all bananas would be deleted. So here needs to be, of course, something that, okay, on click, but then what should happen when we click here? Now we have the situation that we have, here we have on top, we have the app, and then the app will be rendering the title, and then the shopping list component, and then this shopping list will be rendering a whole bunch of these shopping list items. So there will be multiple items here, and all of those are rendered by the shopping list. So now we have the situation that we have here we have a button which basically is part of now an item, no, that is not an items, but it's an item. Drawing with the mouse is not so easy. Maybe you can read something from it. Okay, so the item has now a button, and we would like something to happen. And what we would like to do happen is that the data what we have now here in the app is now having it has now this state inside. And inside the state we have now the items. And it was so that the items data is now being passed here to the shopping list, and then it flows here, and it goes here, and here, and here. So this is one of the critical concepts in React, that the data is always flowing downwards in the component hierarchy from top to down. But now we have the situation that we would like an action made here in some lower level child, that action would modify this state here on top. So we would like an action from here to go there, and then to modify something in the items. And then when items is modified, when we update the state, it will trigger a re-render cycle, and then all these children will be rendered based on the current situation in the state. And that's how it goes. But now, how to get that event from here to the root here in the app? Okay, Anthony is suggesting that we could use the props to pass an on-click. And that is indeed what we should do. So what should happen is that now this shopping list item is receiving some props. And here we have some data, the quantity, unit, and value. But what we should also receive here in the props is now an event handler, a function which to execute when we click. So that function, the task of that function is then to modify the items, the state of the items here in the root component in this app. So that function will be defined here in the app component, and then it will be passed as props here to the shopping list item. And then when here the function is called, then it can modify the state in the app, because otherwise we cannot access the state from here from a child. We cannot write here into this shopping list item. We cannot write code which would modify somehow the state here in the app. But we must use a function which was given to this component. Okay, so we can decide that, okay, there should be a function given to us, and let's say it would be on delete item. This is a name which I just came up. So I decided here that, okay, this component should receive this kind of a prop, and this should be a function, so that then we can call it when we want to delete something. Now we must define this on delete item somewhere, and that somewhere will be the app where we define it. So here I will now go on and write a function on delete item. And as a first thing, what this function will do, I'm simply gonna put a console log statement here that, okay, says that delete item, just to see that I can get it working. And now I will take this function and pass it as a prop to the shopping list, and the shopping list will pass it to the items itself. So I will put it here. I'm going to clear now the drawings. So I will put it here, okay, on delete item. For example, like this. This is the function name, and this is not the prop name. And now it's saying it cannot do it like this. It must be this on delete name, on delete item. So now this prop is being received by the shopping list. Now I need to go into the shopping list here and then pass that same prop to this list item. And I can do it, for example, like this on delete item, props on delete item. So this was now added here to the shopping list. Basically, I'm just passing the prop along. And then now here in the shopping list item itself, now I can finally use it and say that, okay, when there is a click on this button, then call this function. And notice that this shopping list item does not actually know that what this function will do. And it does not have to know. All it cares is about that, okay, that when there is a click to this button, I will call this function. This function, this module here does not know that what is going to happen when it executes this one. But you as a developer, you will know what happens. Okay, let's see. Now just delete item, delete item, delete item. Okay, so it's working. We can execute this function here from here. Okay. So now then, if we would like to know that which item we must delete, so how can we get that information here? If we need to know that delete item, let's say, with index 3, for example. If we would click here, this first one is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. If we click here on the last one, this eggs, how can we know that now an element with index 3 was clicked, and that must be deleted? How can we get the index here so that we could then modify our state so that we would take away this one? And by the way, here I'm going to delete now these functions. They are unneeded. Okay, Vic is writing something to the chat that from item I should pass the index to the app. So how can we do that? How can we pass the index from the item to here to the app? What can we do? If we are here in the shopping list item, here we know that we know at least the ID, but we don't know the index. The index will be maybe known here. Here in the shopping list, we know that, okay, we can have the index, because if you see the map, if you think about the map operation, and then if you see that the callback, what we write ourselves, we can get this information there. So we can get 3 parameters: current value, the current index, and then the array. So currently here we are only using this one. So we could access the index, for example, there. That would work. So we could put it here and then access that one. So we could do this based on the index in the array or based on the ID. Earlier I was talking about the index, but then trusting on the index is not maybe the best thing if the array is modified at some point. Then it could cause maybe some problems. But it would work for this application for sure. We could also work based on this ID on every element, since the idea is that every element has a unique ID. So we could also work without that one. So what I would maybe do, and this is not the absolute correct solution, is that I would introduce here to this onDeleteItem function, which we are now executing whenever I click here. No, here. So we are executing this one. So here we must do the operation. Here we must do the operation that we want to delete the correct item. Delete the correct item. So to know what is the correct item, we need to have some way of identifying. It can be the index, or it can be, in this case, an ID value here in the object, what we are storing in the items. In any case, I'm going to here decide so that this function shall have a parameter delivered to it. So id deleted. So one parameter ID to be deleted. Now we can know it one here, delete item with ID. First write like this. Okay, now we should somewhere get the ID, but we are not currently getting it. But we could get it because the shopping list items, they will know their item IDs. So here we could write like this, props ID. Would this work now? This will again trigger this function is called when this function is being rendered, this component is being rendered. So we would need to put it inside one arrow function that, okay, that this function will be executed when there is a click, and then when it's executed, then we will execute this one, whatever was passed as to with the props. Now our onDeleteItem will receive the ID of this item as a parameter. Now it's saying ID 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we can identify our items from the shopping list. And here is one thing which is not evident, that where does this ID come from? And to understand that one, we need to go here all the way to the app where we are creating these. So the shopping list is not a component which is taking care of rendering all this shopping list. And we are passing the items prop with this content. So the whole array will be passed here. And the array was like this. So there is the ID, there is the value, there's quantity and unit. So all the data will be available inside the shopping list. Then if we see the shopping list itself, what happens here is that here in the props, we will have now the items because it was declared so. Here we have the items and on delete item. So these two will be present in the props here. And what is being done here is that the items array is being mapped over and converted into an array of the shopping list items. And each item or each element in this items array at its turn will be available here as this I. And then what is being done here? What was this operator? So the three dots is a spread operator, and we're going to expand the contents there. So it is the same what we used with the array, but here it's now is being used as an I, because now what is happening here, I'm going to open this side by side, is that now these items will be available here, and the I is now an object, one of these at its turn. And this spread I is now the same thing if I would written here like this ID. I'm going to break these lines a little bit so it's easier to see. Value and then QTU. And unit. Like so. So writing it totally open like this is the same thing than what is achieved by this. This is also one way of making sure that if we do it like this, if we would, for example, go here and modify this one so that, okay, the structure of these items, for example, is changed. Maybe this description from now on, like this. With this one, the description is automatically passed as a prop here. Without this spread, we would need to go and modify it also here. Like so. So it saves you from that. And also, what is not evident, it's not used in this example, but in many situations you have so that there will be, for example, a whole bunch of this kind of event handlers being passed down the component tree, and many times that the actual receivers of these handlers are quite deep in the component tree. So all the components there in between should not need to open their props in this way. Instead, what you can do is that you can simply use the spread operator with the props to pass everything downwards. Basically, when using like this, in a very large component structure, then you are passing everything what was given to you, you are passing it down, and not caring what is in there. So that is also one way how it's being used in many situations in React. But now, through the spread operator the spread operator is now the mechanism which allows us to use the ID inside the shopping list item, even though we have not explicitly written it here as a prop, even though, so even not even explicitly written as it is not written as a prop. So again, so in our application here, writing it like this is the same thing as writing this one. The functionality is the same. So that is the reason why we have the ID available in the shopping list item. Okay, so in the shopping list item, we have now the capability of using the ID from our props, and therefore we can pass our own ID to this function, which is here in this app, this one. So now all that remains is that now we need to do this operation. How can you modify an array? Because that is now what we need to do. We need to go through this items array in the state and then delete the element which has the matching ID. So how can we delete something from an array? What would be a suitable operation? Not an operator, but here if you think about this array, what method would be suitable for deleting something from an array? Yeah, it's this splice here. The splice method changes the contents of an array by removing or replacing existing elements, and it's doing it that in place. And this is now an important thing to notice, that it's doing it in place, meaning that if you have here a Mons array, like here we have in this example 4 elements, then when you call the splice on that one, this one will be modified, so it is on place. So the splice operation does not return a new array for you. And it is important for us because we cannot do it like this, that we would go this state items splice. We cannot do it like this, because now we would be modifying the items in state, and you cannot modify items. So first we must create the new a clone of the items array again. So let new items, for example, and then again with the spread, these state items. So here we are copying or cloning, whatever term you want to use, cloning this array. It's now here, and then now for these new items we can use the splice. But for the splice to work, we would need to know that from which index to start from. To know that, we again need to use the find index, which is already very familiar to us. So call the find index, and then okay, this one is suggesting it already. This is great. I don't even have to write my code. The editor does it for me. So item, you're going to check that, okay, if the item ID matches the ID to be deleted, then we return true. If not, then we return false. So this one will work, index to delete, and then we need to have a check here if index to let's see what it was suggesting. If index to delete is something else than -1, then we can proceed. We create a new items, and then from new items we splice, and then how does the splice work? The start index, and then second parameter, how many to delete. So this one will be our index value where to start. So that one there, and we delete 1, and then it should be okay. And then we need to set these new items to be in the state. So this set state, and we set the items to be new items. Okay, now if everything is in place, we can see that does it work. Milk, yes. Bananas, yes. Bread, eggs, yes. Yogurt. Okay. We have basic building blocks of a CRUD application. An application where we can create, read, update, and delete information. Here we are updating, and here we are creating, and here we are deleting. Yeah, you can use array prototype filter as well. So Erik is suggesting that one. That would work as well. So the advantage of the filter is that then it would return as a totally new array as an output. So then we don't have to do this as well at all. So the filter is also a very good method. So here, as it says, the filter methods creates a new array with all elements that pass the test implemented by the provided function. So again, we can write our own function to check that which elements would pass and which elements would not pass. So having this done in the filter would be like so, that we could have it directly in the set state, but I'm going to create here a new variable for it. So this state items dot filter. Now item, basically now we could check that okay, which item does not match. Let's see what does happen. Okay, the function if return true to keep the element false otherwise. So to return for the true item, return true to not keep. So the first one, item ID, is not ID to be deleted. So this should work now like this. Oh, new items. And then do it simply like this. So this filter is very, very handy. It allows you to do more complex operation or same kind of operation in a shorter way. So using the filter was a very good suggestion here. And now it should work if I did not get the values of true and false incorrect. And now we have there. Now it's there working. Okay, anything to ask here? So the main point here was to convey the idea that you can pass these event handlers as props. Functions can be passed as props. So because in JavaScript you can use treat functions like you treat any other variable. And then if you need to pass some information from the bottom of the component tree upwards to, for example, the root component, here was the mechanism introduced for that, so that there is this parameter, and this parameter was now given value here in the shopping list item, which is now a descendant of the app. App is now the root component, and here we are now passing the ID of this element to the delete item. So that way we know that which one was clicked. Okay, if there are no questions, then let's have a lunch break and continue at 12:30. So lunch break, continue 12:30. Oh, okay, now it went to someone. Okay, so we continue at 12:30. Okay, let's leave this shopping list exercise for a while, and let's start a new exercise. So now how we're going to do the new exercise is so that I'm going to give you the task now, and then you will have 15 minutes of time on your own to do that. And after the 15 minutes, I will create breakout rooms so that there should be about 3 people per breakout room. And then you will have 30 minutes to work in the breakout room to get the exercise done. So the idea is so that on the first 15 minutes, everybody should think and already start implementing their own solution. And then in the breakout rooms, you can discuss with your group members that what kind of solutions did you come up with to the task, and then work together on completing the task. And then I will visit all the breakout rooms, and then we can discuss about your solutions. So that is the way how the exercise will progress. And and the exercise task for you is to create a tic-tac-toe game board with React. So you should start a new Create React app project. And just to remind you that the tic-tac-toe game board looks like this. So you should create into the web browser that there is the board displayed, and then so that whenever the user clicks on some of the board squares on an empty square, then it adds, first you add the circle, then after that there is the X, then there is the circle, then there is the X, and then maybe another circle, and then an X, and so on. And this is the way how you continue until the board is finished. You don't have to make the winning logic check to the game, but the main goal here is to practice with React and how to create the board and how to make it so that you can fill it with these board markers, the circle and then the X, and then so that if the board marker is filled, then you cannot go and change it anymore. So this is the task. Do you have any questions about this? So tic-tac-toe board with React, use the Create React app to create a new project. And then by clicking these, you can add either circles or X's, and then the game finishes. Maybe you can create then some like a button here, which says a new game. And then when you click on this button, then it clears the board, and then you can start over. So for the first 15 minutes, you can think about and work on this on your own. And then after the 15 minutes, I will split you up into these breakout rooms, and then you have 30 minutes to work on that. And then we will see what kind of solutions did you come up with. Okay, so it is now 12:35, so you have solo work time until 12:50, and then breakout room work time until 13:20. So that is the way. So okay, I'm gonna show now one example solution and talk through it while implementing it. And then if you want to discuss about your own solution, or you have some or have some problems which you would like to discuss about, then we can discuss about those in the tutoring session, since we are running a little bit out of time. A little bit out of time here. So what I have done is that I have here now this kind of starting situation. There is now the cells are now rendered on the screens, and this is now, and so that I have two classes here defined in CSS. I have a board and then I have a cell. So cells are children of this board. And how the CSS looks for this is that there is now the CSS grid being used to render this grid. And then the cells themselves have this kind of CSS to visualize themselves. Without this, these would be empty cells without anything on the screen. So the first thing what I'm going to do now when I have this one is that I'm going to create a dedicated component out of this. It will make my life much more easier later on. So I will go on and create here a component called cell.js. And it shall be just a function. Then I will take this one, copy it from here, and for now on, what this cell.js, this component will return, it is identical to what was previously there. So I'm going to modify here now. So that it looks like this. There is 9 of these cells. Now I'm missing an import. It's there. Why is it saying that it cannot resolve it? Okay. Now there is here, the styles is now missing, so I'm going to create a CSS file for those. Now it is, style name is cell, and I'm going to move what was previously defined here in the app. It's going to be here. So this is just code reorganization at this stage. Okay, so now it can show itself. Then I'm going to think about that. How am I going to be showing the content of each cell? What is the situation? Each cell now can be in 3 different states. It can be empty, or it can have the X, or it can have the O. So what I'm going to basically do is that I need to keep track of the board, game board state somewhere, and that somewhere is going to be here in the app. Where here in the constructor, I'm going to now set the initial state of that that board, and I'm going to represent the board as an array. And the logic that I'm going to be using is so that since there can be 3 states in each cell, I'm going to have value 0 indicate empty, and value 1 indicate player 1, value 2 indicate player 2. So in the beginning, these will be all zeros. So this one will represent my board data structure. And now, since this is going to be stored here in the state, I'm going to change these ones to be rendered based on the map operation from this board. So this is going to change. I'm going to go this state board map, and then like so. I'm going to render a cell for each element in this board. Therefore, I can delete these hard-coded cells here. And still there is no change in the outlook. Now it is saying here that each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So that is what React requires if you have an array of something, so that it can differentiate between the elements. So I should add here a key prop, and the value of the key should be some unique way of identifying these elements. So I'm thinking an index would be a good one. The function what I can give to the map has 3 parameters. Now I'm only using 1. So the second parameter, I remember that it is the index. So I'm going to start using that one now. And I'm going to be using the index as the key for React to keep track of those elements in the array. So now it's vanished from the warning. Next step is that I need to have some way of passing information to the cell, that what is the situation of each cell, who is owning it. So I'm going to declare a prop here called value. And now, since the board is just an array of numbers, of integers, that means that this C, when I'm mapping this board, the C, which is now representing each element in its turn, is going to be this kind of integer primitive. So I'm going to put the value there directly, that C is now representing that one. Okay, so then I'm going to go inside the cell component to actually make use of this value. And here I could start like this, that inside this div I render this value. And it must be a prop coming from the props. And props is always a parameter to a function representation of a React component. So now it's drawing these zeros here. And if I go here and update, okay, now it's player 1, it will update there. This is player 2, it will update 1 and 2, and so on. Maybe I will keep those there, just as an example. Okay, so now I need some way of how I can eliminate that it's not going to show these zeros here at all. And I'm going to do so that, because here I have a return statement on this function, I'm going to have some conditions here. And here is a new technique which I have not yet shown to you in React. I can also store JSX in variables. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to declare a variable called output and assign it for a null value. And then I'm going to set the output to be rendered here. Now the board vanishes. Next step is to make some checks that, okay, if props value equals 1, then the output shall be string x. Else, if the not else, but else if props value equals 2, then output will be the O. So now I have decided that the O will be for player 2, the X will be for player 1. So now it's showing, okay, this would be the situation, how it would look like if the board state would be like this. So now I have a way of visualizing the board state. And next step would be to do so that I can actually click here so that it adds it. And for doing that, there is the requirement that I keep track of the player turn. So it begins by player 1. When player 1 clicks, then it's player 2 can click, then player 1, and so on. So I need to keep track of the player turn, and that is also going in here into the state. It's going to start from player turn 1. And now if I need to do something based on the click, I need to have a click handler, of course. So, and because that click handler will need to modify the state here, I need to declare the function here which to execute based on when the click happens. So I'm going to create a function which looks like this, cell click, for example. And now the idea is that this cell click will be passed for all of these cells. So now to identify which cell was clicked, I need also to get the index of the clicked cell at the time. So I'm going to do it so that here is now an ID which will be given to this function. But this is the cell which was clicked. First, I'm going to just put the console statement. Then I'm going to now deliver this cell click to this cell component. But on cell click, this function shall be executed. Then I'm going to go inside the cell component and use this prop. So here, now we want to do so that whenever there's a click on area of this cell, so it means on the area of this div, so therefore I'm going to put the on click for the whole div. And now there is this props, and then the name of the was this on cell click, which is coming as being given as a prop. So I'm going to call that one like so. On cell click. But now the on cell click requires this ID parameter, and I'm not yet delivering that one. So I would need to set here some parameter so that this is now the ID or something. And for this to work, I need to again to wrap it inside a function. But now I don't have the ID here. I'm going to take it from the props. So now I'm going to need to create this kind of ID prop somewhere here. And the value of the ID shall be the index, the array index. So let's see. Now I can see here in the console, it is saying correct IDs whenever I click on somewhere. Okay, so now I need to act here. I need to modify the board state based on on that one. So now if I need to modify the board state, I'm gonna create a new clone of the whole array, new board, and then again with the spread. Then I can go, okay, new board. Now I know the index, it is this ID, and the value will be the player turn. Since I'm following the logic that here the player number indicates player number 1 is X, player number 2 is O, and here I'm going to be keeping either 1 or 2. So therefore I can put directly like so. So now the board will be updated. Then I need to store it into the state. Board will be new board, like so. And then let's see what happens. Now I can go on here and it's all X's. I think what I'm missing now is that I don't modify the player turn ever, so it's always going to be the same player turn, always going to be X. So I'm going to need to update the player turn as well. So if this state player turn equals 1, then I'm going to update this set state player turn to be 2. And then otherwise it's going to be return 1. Okay, so now I'm switching the player numbers. If it's 1, it's going to be 2. If it's 2, it's going to be 1. So that will take care of the switching the player turns. First X, then O, then X, then O, and so on. Now let's clear the table. So first X, then O, X, O, X. Yeah, now it works, except now I can keep on clicking. So there would need to be a new check, basically before this or after this, that if all the elements of the board have been changed to something else than 0, then we are at the finish of the game. But we are almost at the finish of our class, so I'm not going to make that check. This was the main point in any case of getting this one to work. So if you start to do some kind of other solution, and there are many ways how you can implement this, please try to finish it if you did not finish your solution. And we have the tutoring session this week again. So you can come there and discuss if you have some problems, or if you did not understand this, for example, for some reason. So this is the way how the app looks like, and this is the way how the cell looks like. Here is the CSS for the cell and CSS for the app, if you're interested. You can look these later on from the video, for example. Okay, so that's it for today. There is one homework for you, which to do. Just a second, I'm gonna get it from here. Okay, and here is the homework instructions. I'm going to put this to Moodle as well. So your task is to again create a new project with the Create React app. And the goal here is to create a similar looking result, a single UI view, which looks like the Amazon product search. So it would look like this, for example. So that there is this kind of an array of these products. Each product is made up of an image, some product information, the product name. Then there would be the manufacturer name, then the price. Then okay, here is indication of any used products for sale. Then there would be these rating stars, that okay, what is the rating for this one? And then it seems that there is some kind of certification indicator here. So creating this kind of view is now your goal, and you should implement this so that there should be a separate React component for these products, meaning that you don't have everything in a single app.js, but you have a product component, and then you are using that component in your work. And you should have the images locally, so not by some HTTP references to some internet resources, but save the images locally into your project and then use them from there. Here is a link on how you can use images from local in the Create React app toolchain, if you don't already know that. And yeah, and the product information should not be hard-coded into the alongside the JSX, but instead the product information should come from a data. So you can have like a JSON file, for example, or you can have it here in some state variable, if you want to have that one, or something like this. But it should not be hard-coded into JSX, so that you would have here written like, okay, memory, then manufacturer, Roku, etc. So you should not have here hard-coded product data, product names and values, but instead they should come from some data source, either from a JSON file, or they can be in the state, and then in the JSX you only deal with data. So this is the the goal for homework from this class. And then on Friday, we will be expanding on this homework by seeing how we can deal with forms, and then how can we change views so that if you have this view, then when you click on a product, you can see the details of that product and so on. So go in more details of, or advance a little bit on React. Okay, any questions on this homework? Or anything what we have done today? If not, then we are done for today. I wish you have a nice day, and see you in the tutoring session and then on Friday. Bye.